Good morning. Look at all you brave people that came out in the rain today. I was in Nairobi last week, which I realize is one of the most pretentious ways to start a sentence. And it was pouring, like torrential downpour, and I was a little afraid for my life. And everyone else was like, what? And I was like, if this happened in Southern California, people would literally not leave their homes. But here we are. So let's pause this morning. Let's pray as we dive into this conversation. Jesus, we're so grateful for you. We extend our gratitude for who you are and what you do, not just for us, but what you've done in us and through us and around us. And may today you continue to well up gratitude in us so that we might become the people that you've called us to be. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Well, in case you didn't get the hint in my prayer, we are in a conversation around gratitude for the month of November, which I know is the most cliche conversation that we could possibly have, and yet we're having it. How many of you have been engaging your gratitude jars over the last few? Awesome. If you haven't, shame on you. No, in our home, it's become like a nightly tradition, and now like we can't finish dinner without the boys being like, what are we grateful for? Which I love, you know, and every day it's something specific, and it's really changed the dynamics even of our dinner time as a family together. But we've been looking at what it looks like to live a life of appreciation, and that this dynamic of gratitude is not just a cute spiritual practice, being thankful for things in our lives, that it's actually this superpower that when we understand the dynamics that come with gratitude, it transforms everything around us. Because once we live from a space of gratitude, it changes how we see the world. And it also changes what we see around us. It allows us to see what was not there a moment ago. And I remember on my sabbatical, I was in Cancun, and I went on a bird watching expedition, which I've done before. And every single time, it surprises me because we get on this golf cart, and we go out into the jungle, and there's these two, like, zoologists with binoculars, and they're looking around, and they're going, wow, look at all these birds. And I'm looking around going, there are no birds what are you talking about, right? And I'm thinking, is this the way you trick the gringo in the car, right? Like, look at all the birds. And I'm the one going, oh, yes, they're everywhere. That's wonderful. And so I remember pausing and going, I don't see any birds. And the first time this happened, they said, all right, I want you to stop and close your eyes for a moment and listen. And I said, okay, I'm listening. And then, what do you hear? And I hear nothing. And they're like, no, just listen for a moment. And all of a sudden I hear, oh, there's like a little tweeting over here, and there's some chirping over here, and now there's like noises all around me the more that I quieted my own inner thoughts. And then as I opened my eyes and started looking, I realized that there were like birds everywhere. They're like in the trees, on the ground. They were all around me, right? And I guarantee you what didn't happen was during those 3 minutes with my eyes closed, they didn't go out like Cinderella and gather the animals, right? They had been there the whole time. I had just been focused on all kinds of other things other than the birds. The moment that I just decided I'm going to focus on the birds, they appeared to me. And the same thing happens with gratitude. That the moment you decide to live from a perspective of gratitude, it will transform what you see. Your world will be instantly different, not because it changed, but because you were able to access seeing them in that moment. See, the birds were always there. It was just the perspective, that shift, that allowed me to see them. And when you choose to look out at life through the lens of gratitude, it transforms everything that you see. Now, sometimes we have this idea that when we don't live in gratitude, that it's a neutral experience. Like, over here is just normal living, and that's good. And then on the other side of the spectrum is gratitude, where we get to have this dynamic experience of living life. I'm going to invite you to consider that the opposite of living in gratitude is not a neutral experience. It's not just normal life and a life filled with gratitude. I'm going to invite you to consider that the opposite of gratitude is perpetual disappointment. That when you choose not to live in gratitude, it's not just like, well, I'm just living my normal life. The opposite of living in gratitude, the only option available to you other than gratitude is a life that is perpetually disappointed. And I know so many of us that live in that space. See, what I have found is that when I choose to not live in gratitude, I choose to live in discontentment. And this informs how I see the world, what I see, and what informs the story that I live and see. When I look out at my life and I see everything is disappointing, my job's disappointing, my kids are disappointing, I'm disappointing. When I look out and that's all that I see around my side, I just look out and I'm just like, man, there's disappointment everywhere. It informs what I see. And again, the tragedy could be that there is beauty everywhere. That there is beauty in your job, there is beauty with your kids, there is beauty with your finances, there's beauty in you, and it's all around you, and you just cannot see it. So the question would be, why would we ever choose otherwise? Why would we choose to live a life of perpetual disappointment? Why would we choose this perspective when this perspective is available to us over here? Well, I don't know if you've noticed this, but have you noticed, like I've noticed, that relationships are incredibly messy? Have you found that to be true? They're just a mess, aren't they? And it's always like an ironic thing the way God set up the universe, because being in relationship with other human beings is actually one of our core needs. You cannot survive without being with another human being. You actually go mentally insane if you are isolated from other human beings. It's the one thing that we actually need to survive. And then we find ourselves in the middle of this messiness, and it becomes painful. Even with the people that you love the most, have you noticed that they're the ones that can inflict the most pain? That the people that you are most connected with are the people that can actually hurt you the most. And so here we are in this strange situation where the very thing that I need is the very thing that will hurt me, is the very thing that will disappoint me, is the very thing that will let me down in the end. And it actually hurts even more with the people that we trust, doesn't it? It hurts even more when it's the people that we love the most. It's one thing to be disappointed by your barista, right? It's another thing to be disappointed by your spouse or by your kids or by your parents or by that close coworker or by that best friend. That leaves a whole another ball game. And if you've been in a relationship for more than 5 minutes, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Someone hurts us. Someone takes something from us. They take our trust. They take our hope. They take our longings. They take our dreams. They take our honor. They take our love. They take our innocence. Someone took something from me that I trusted, that I loved, that I put hope in, that I thought was going to be there for me, and they disappointed me in some way, shape, or form. And what we do with that pain and that loss and that theft informs so much in our life. I think this is why Jesus spent so much time talking about forgiveness. Because he realized that this dynamic of human relationship, if we were going to need one another and each other would be the source of pain inflicted upon us, that forgiveness would be the name of the game that we would get to practice over and over and over again. And all throughout the scriptures, he talks about forgiveness, whether it's Matthew 18, where Peter comes to him and says, hey, how many times should I forgive? 7 times? And Peter thinks he's like a strong man, and Jesus is like, actually 7 times 70. That's how many times you get to forgive the person over there who has hurt you. Or in Luke 6, where Jesus actually says, if you want to be forgiven, you have to forgive other people, which will mess with your theology. In Matthew 6, where Jesus teaches us to pray, and he teaches us in our pray, Father, forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. So everywhere that Jesus speaks, he speaks to this dynamic of forgiveness and the need that we have to not only be forgiven, but then to forgive other people. And when we choose not to forgive, when we find ourselves in a space of pain, of hurt, of let down, where someone has taken something from me, where we're living in a space where we have been stolen from in some way, shape, or form, we live with the lens that someone has taken something from me, and I am entitled to get back what was taken from me. And our entire perspective of life now becomes, I deserve what was taken from me. For some of us, things were taken from us when we were really little, weren't they? Innocence, hope, joy, a sense of self or confidence. And for many of us, we have spent decades attempting to get back what was stolen from us. attempting to make up for the deficit that lives inside of us. And all of our energy then goes into attempting to make up for what was stolen, what was lost, what was not given to us. And look, here's the thing. I know that none of us do this consciously. We don't walk around our lives saying, my dad wasn't there, and so now I'm going to be insecure and try to take from other people. We don't go out in life and saying, that thing didn't work out, and now I'm not going to trust other people. We don't do that. It just lives inside of us. In fact, that's the insipidous thing about resentment, is that you can't even see it, and it's living inside of you at times. But our energy goes into attempting to make up for what was lost. And the problem is that when we look out at life now through that lens, through that perspective, we start to view everything from the lens of lack, from the lens of scarcity, from the lens of there is not enough. And so I'm trying to make up for the deficit that I am living in over here now. And that is what colors our vision when we look out at the world. In Hebrews chapter 12, starting in verse 14, the writer of Hebrews says this about this dynamic. He says this, "Make every effort to live in peace with everyone and be holy." Now that's a tall order right there, right? Not some people, not most people. Live at peace with everyone. Now I don't know about you, but I look at that and I'm like, yeah, right? That is a tall order for most of us. But then he says with this, without holiness, no one will see the Lord. See, notice that we're in a conversation about what we're capable of seeing here. That there's this dynamic that informs what we see or what we don't see. See, it doesn't actually say, be at peace with one another, because if you are not holy, you won't be able to hear the Lord. It doesn't say you won't be able to experience him. He says you won't actually be able to see him. You'll actually look out at your life if you are not at peace with other people. And when you look out at your life, what you will see is chaos and hopelessness and scarcity and lack. And guess who's also missing from the picture? God himself. You won't be able to see him, even when he's there in front of us. So what allows us to access this holiness? He continues, see to it that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and to defile many. See, this little root of someone's taken something from me and now I need to get it back, and I'm trying to figure out who I can get it back from. It starts out little. In fact, you may not even be aware that it's there. It's not like something you need to go see a therapist for. It's just there. It lives inside of us. And we may even say, it's not a big deal. It's something small. It's something insignificant. But I refuse to forgive. And so it lives in there like a little seed, and it takes root. But the problem is that as it takes root, it now becomes pervasive. I remember when I got a plot at the Center Street Garden right across the street over here, which is a community garden here in Pomona. And I remember they told me, you are not allowed under any circumstances, had to sign a contract saying that I will not plant mint in that garden. And I said, why? I like mint. And they said, no, you don't understand. If you plant mint in that garden, within a matter of months, it will be everywhere. They say because that puppy roots go deep and long, and then they'll be in this plot, and they'll be over here, and then we'll find it in the corner over there, and within a year, the whole garden will just be a wonderful mint garden. And we are not interested in that. See, and I think that actually what happens with our own bitterness, our resentment. We let something go, we dismiss it, we excuse it, we refuse to forgive. We're saying, I'm not gonna let them off the hook. And so it's a little root of bitterness, but then it starts to grow out and it affects everything inside of our lives. So it starts with, hey, someone betrayed my trust, but it eventually turns into people cannot be trusted. Or my spouse hurt me, and now my love needs to become calculating with everyone else in my life because they might hurt me too. So I need to be careful with my heart because they let me down, so they might let me down. Or I grew up with critical parents, and so now when I look out, I assume that everyone's judging me. And so I withhold myself from participating in life because, I might be judged by someone. Or a leader once dismissed my ideas, and that turns into I should never speak up, I should never participate, I should never engage in, or someone lied to me once, and now I need to second guess everything that everyone says. Or someone took advantage of me, and so now being generous is not a safe space. It's a dangerous space. You see how it grows up and troubles much? That little root can actually inform how we see the entire world around us. And so many of us live life attempting to make up for the perceived deficit that we live in. And let's be honest, when we're doing that, it feels powerful, doesn't it? I think it's one of the ways that we maintain this illusion that we are in control. That if we protect ourselves, if we guard our heart from trusting, if we guard our heart from putting ourselves out there and maybe being judged, if we guard ourselves from being taken advantage of, then I get to stay in control. No one will hurt me. No one will take advantage of me. No one will betray my trust. And I'm in control now. So it feels safe. It feels powerful, doesn't it? Until we realize that we're actually trapped by the very thing that we thought was keeping us safe and in control. That now we're stuck in the prison cell of our own resentment, of our own self-protection, of our own needing to control the circumstances and situations. And what's even worse, we think we hold the key to the prison cell. The reality is the person that betrayed us holds the key to the prison cell. Because our life is now responding to the decision that they made. It's not responding out of vision, or it's not responding out of a calling on our life. It's not responding out of an assignment that we will step into. It's not responding out of a commitment that we have to who God has called us to be. We are simply responding to what this person did. And so this person is still literally at the driver's seat of our life, informing what we will do, what we won't do, how we'll give ourselves, how we'll hold back. And the whole time we think we're in control. They're the one calling the shots of your life. And it feels powerful in the moment until we realize that it's not only us that are suffering the consequences, that little root of bitterness goes out and troubles much. So now, whatever happened with my parents now gets passed down to my kids and my coworkers, and whatever happened to that person that betrayed me now gets passed on to the people that I call friends, and whatever happened with that person that betrayed my hope and my freedom over there now gets passed out to every single other person. And so other people in my life, all of my community, my family, my friends, my coworkers, my neighbors, they're actually paying the price for what this person did years ago in my life in the act of me trying to make up for it. So I actually start punishing the people in my life for things that they never actually did. And so we find ourselves in this space where not only do we fall short of the grace of God, but now other people fall short of the grace that we've been given. There's no grace on them because someone took from me, now I have to take from you. Someone took from me, I have to take from you. Someone took from me, I have to take from you. Someone took from me, I have to take from you. And our life just becomes this vacuum where resources and love and hope and joy just get sucked into this dark hole over here. And forgiveness is this beautiful antidote to the heinous poison of bitterness. It is the anti-venom. See, how do you know that you are actually forgiving? What's one sign that would let you know that you are actively walking out for forgiveness? You know, one of those signs is that gratitude flows freely from your life. That you actually just, there's no hindrance. You're like, man, when you look out at life, you're like, man, look at how many gifts I have. In fact, when I sit down with my gratitude jar, it is so hard for me to write down just one thing because there's like 50. So that would be an indicator that you're authentically walking in forgiveness, is that when it's an opportunity to express gratitude or live in gratitude, it's like the most natural thing. It just flows out of you because you have been set free, and so you get to live others set free. But when you are stuck in chronic disappointment, entitlement, I deserve, I'm trying to get back, forgiveness allows you to get back into that place of gratitude. Not only does it release you from the bitterness or resentment, but once you are released from the bitterness or resentment, gratitude begins to flow freely again from you because you are no longer in a deficit. You are back to who you were created to be. There's no piece of you missing in the midst of that. And so the beautiful thing is that the more you exercise gratitude, the less disappointed you are in life. The less you are trying to make up for what you don't have or what was taken from you, or what someone should have done for you, or what you should have done, fill in the blank. And once again, you can look out at life from the perspective that everything becomes a gift. See, I think this is one of the reasons why the cross is so important to grasp and to understand the full reality of it. See, because when we are the one who owe the debt out of our own brokenness, When we are the one who actually owe the debt out of our own destructive choices and our own mindsets that lead us into dark places and our own betrayal of who God has created us to be and disconnecting from the calling that's on our lives, when we're the one that owes the debt and the God of the universe comes to us and says, I will forgive you. I will release you from your debt. And it's not just nice words. I will actually come. I will live a perfect life. I will be crucified. I will die, and I will come back to life. That when he extends that type of forgiveness, it sets us free. And from that well of being forgiven, we then have everything we need to forgive others. See, oftentimes when we are unwilling to forgive others, we have just disconnected from the massive amount that we have been forgiven for. See, when we realize what we have been forgiven, it would seem silly to forgive or choose not to forgive that person over there. That would be crazy. But so many of us are just unaware of the debt that we owed and that was released from us in that. By the way, forgiveness is not a one and done process. Have you noticed that? I talk to so many people when we're in a conversation or a coaching conversation or a space where we're working together and I'll bring up, it sounds like you haven't forgiven that person. And oftentimes they'll say, oh no, I forgave them of June of 2023. I'm sure you did. And then somewhere along the line, you unforgave them, right? The beautiful thing about this is that forgiveness is not like a one and done. Forgiveness is an attitude of heart that we walk in every single day. That we wake up and we say, I choose to forgive. I choose to release. This isn't why in the Lord's Prayer when it says, if someone owes you a debt, forgive them. It just says, forgive them because they do. It's a continual choice to say, I wake up and release the people around me from the debt that they owe me. Now, here's the cool thing. There's this natural process. There's this natural spiritual process that starts happening as you forgive, as you release the debt that is owed you, as you forgive others around you. There's this beautiful thing that happens inside of you and that you actually become complete. You actually get the privilege of living in wholeness. See, because your personal accounts are no longer in the negative. You know what I'm talking about, right? Those of you who've ever looked at your bank account, you're like, oh, we overdrew, right? That feeling, like you're not whole, you're not complete, oh gosh, I gotta make up for something. That's no longer. When you look at your own personal accounts, I'm not in the negative anymore. I actually have a positive net worth now. And so when I look out at the world, there's nothing to make up for. There's nothing to protect. There's nothing to cover up for. There is so much freedom. And you become the thing that your soul has been longing for from the beginning, and that is wholeness. You actually become whole in the middle of this. You are no longer fragmented. You are no longer less than. There are not pieces missing of you from your past. You are complete. And see, I think this is why so many people in our culture are obsessed with this question of, am I enough? And if you've been around here long enough, you know it's like my pet peeve when I see on some Instagram meme, like this beautiful picture of a meadow with the, I am enough. The fact that we are asking that question lets us know that we are incomplete. See, people who struggle with the question, am I enough, or some form of that question, which includes, are people judging me? So when we struggle with that question, it lets us know, oh, I haven't found wholeness yet. I actually am not walking in wholeness. I'm actually not walking in completeness because am I enough presupposes that something might be missing. That there might be some part of me that has been taken still, or that is still living in a deficit, or that something could be taken from me. And wholeness comes with gratitude, and gratitude is the byproduct of a life of forgiveness. And the beautiful thing is when you live in that wholeness, there isn't a question of am I enough? You're like, I've been made complete because of the cross and because of the release of others. I don't actually have to live in that question anymore. It's not even a thought in my head. And here's how you know that you've been made whole. See, people who forgive, the indicator is that they live in gratitude, and people that are made whole give more than they take in life. That's an indicator that you're actually walking in wholeness. That there's a freedom to give of your life, of your time, of your energy, of your resources, of your mind, of your heart. There's not a concern about, well, if I give too much, I might run out. Or if I give too much of my time, then I'm going to be left depleted. Or if I give too much of my resources, then God will not be faithful. Somehow, when people live in a space of wholeness, they look at their lives and go, I'm complete. So from this completeness, I get to give away more than I take. Have you ever been around people who are just like relational black holes? You know what I'm talking about? If you're like, no, that's probably you, okay? But these are people that when you're in conversation with them, they somehow find a way to turn the conversation back on themselves. You know what I'm talking about? They just somehow find the way to make the conversation about them. Or they are so skilled at finding new things to complain about. You know what I'm talking about? These are the people who are like, man, I got a raise at work. And now I have to pay more taxes, right? And now there's more expected of me. I mean, these are the people that can turn any type of blessing into a curse instantly. They're so skilled at it, right? They're just amazing at it. And here's the crazy thing is with these people, you can give generously of your time and you can give generously of your resources and you can give generously of your heart and it will not be enough. Let me just tell you, being a pastor for 20 years now, there are people in my life who have sat in my living room, who Marla and I have put their marriage back together, who have counseled them through their kids, who have made sure they had money when they did not have money, who have made sure that their lives get put back together. And then we do something like not getting the right kind of coffee at the coffee bar, and then they leave saying, you weren't there for me. And that's when all the four-letter words go flying in my head, and I release those to Jesus, right? Because it doesn't actually matter what you do for them. They live from a space of deficit as well. And so no matter what could be thrown at them, it will never be enough. But this is actually the norm for the world around us. This is actually the norm, that it is a rare thing to encounter someone who has been made whole, who walks with a sense of confidence in who they are, not because of them, but because of what the creator of the universe has released them from, and in turn, they get to release others from. Because they've connected intimately to the God who has forgiven them, so they do not walk with shame or guilt or resentment, and their debt has been paid, and because of that, they easily forgive and release others their debt. See, they have been released, so they release. They have been released, so they release. They have been released, so they have been released, so they release. And people, yes. And people who are made whole, unlike people who are stuck in scarcity, actually start generating life. They move from being the vacuum that sucks up all the resources and there's never enough and constantly trying to make up for what is there. Their life actually starts generating life. Their life actually starts producing hope. Their life actually starts producing freedom. Their life actually becomes a source of faith and love and hope everywhere they go. And their lives become generative, and they are marked by one of the most powerful human characteristics that a human being could ever exhibit, because it is one of the most powerful characteristics of God himself. And they actually become generous with their lives. See, this is the path that gratitude takes us on, is as we forgive, we get to step into a space of gratitude, and from gratitude, we become whole, and out of wholeness, our lives become generative, and we become generous with our lives. Forgiveness releases you into a life that produces life. And the crazy thing is that as you become whole, you don't actually have to do anything. You will actually just start naturally giving back to the world around you. It'll become as natural as breathing. It will just become as normal as the air that we breathe, and your life will start focusing on meeting the needs of others around you, because you are whole, and whole people lack nothing, which is a very rare thing. And when I lack nothing, I can give everything away because there's more available. There's more coming. You know, as a pastor, I used to agonize all week long when I talked about generosity. I mean, I would fast and pray, and I would look up scripture, and I would have people praying for me. You know, we're talking about generosity this week. You know, it would be like a whole thing, because Because I know the reputation that pastors have and the churches come from, and I know that there's so much skew in that. But 7 years ago, there was a shift that took place inside of me. That when I looked at my life, and I looked at my life with Marla and our family's life, I looked at all the moments where momentum started happening in my life. And I'm not just talking about financial momentum. I'm talking about like, wow, our relationships are getting healthy. Our family is coming together. We're doing well. Like the world around us seems like there's abundance in it. If I was to analyze those moments, those were the moments that Marla and I were living from a place of wholeness and generosity. There was this natural byproduct of abundance that happened in our lives. And then I noticed that the moments that we were in resentment and we chose to not forgive and we were living from a deficit, our lives seemed to shrink up. Our lives seemed to implode on themselves, and we found ourselves in perpetual disappointment with ourselves, with other people, with our community. And it was like that moment in The Matrix when Neo suddenly goes, whoa, right? And the bullets are flying by him, and he's like, what is happening right now, right? And it was like everything came together. I was like, oh, when I live in generosity, my life generates life. And when I choose to live in resentment, my life becomes a vacuum, and there will never be enough to satisfy that. And the beautiful thing about this is now I think it is crazy not to have conversations around generosity, because it is the framework that unlocks hope and freedom and beauty in our lives. It is the secret to living free. See, in Luke chapter 6, verse 28, it says, "Give, and it will be given to you." Now, that doesn't make any sense, right? Because in our context, if I give you $1, I am now -$1, right? That would make sense. And that is in our limited earthly perspective, that would make sense to look out at the world. But in this kingdom economy, God's like, give love, and you will receive love. Participate fully with your friendships and openness and vulnerability. Put your heart out there, and guess what? People will put their heart out there with you. Give of your resources generously, and God will give resources back in the middle of this. And this is the powerful thing. It says, a good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, you will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Now, that's a crazy verse right there, right? That's a verse that gets really dangerous with prosperity preachers. And yet, the dynamics of this are absolutely true. Because here's the crazy thing. God does not need you to be generous for him. When Jesus started this whole thing, he talked about money more than anything else. When you read through the Gospels, he's like, money, 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 money. We're going to talk about all the money, right? Money, money, money. And it ain't because he was broke. He wasn't going, how are we going to bankroll this thing, right? He's like, we're going to start a movement. I need about 100 mil. How are we going to do this? 10% sounds good. Let's go, right? No, he didn't do that. He was not concerned about any of that in this moment. See, he actually knew that money would be one of the best windows into our souls that informs us of how forgiving we are. That he would just say, you want to know how forgiving you are? Just take a look at how much you give of your money. Because that will inform you the generosity that you, or the gratitude that you live in, and then the wholeness that you live in, and if from that space you're willing to give of yourself. And this is the beautiful thing. He just said, this will be the perfect window into your soul. And he says, look, how do you relate to giving a small percentage of the resources that I have already given you? How do you relate to that? And here's the beautiful thing about this, is that it's so tangible. This is what I love. Have you ever had someone ask you a silly question, like, where are you at on your spiritual journey? A question that I ask people all the time, right? How do you even answer that question, right? Well, I think I'm loving. My spouse says differently, but I think I am, right? I think I'm vulnerable, but there's all these secrets I don't tell. You know, like there's all these things, and you have to guess, right? You're kind of, I think I'm compassionate. I assess that I'm empathetic. I believe that I am serving. And so we have to take a guess at the ethereal nature of all these spiritual things. What I love about money is that you can just look at your bank account and just say, what number do you give of yourself? And it gives you a little window into the scarcity that you live in, or the bitterness that you live in, or the unfulfilled revenge that you are currently in? When I look at that, is my bank account telling me that I'm a vacuum, trying to get as much as I can? Or does my bank account tell me that I am generative with my resources over there? See, God does not need you to be generous for him. He is not concerned about how he is going to finance a mission. He needs you to be generous for you, because the opposite is a life stuck in prison with the choices that someone else made in your past. That's the only alternative to generosity on the other side. And the alternative is being stuck where over here is a life filled with freedom and abundance that you get to step into, but that your life actually becomes a source generating for others. A few years ago, Marla and I made the jump to solar panels. Anyone else have solar panels on their house? Yeah, it was one of the best decisions we've ever made. But here's the thing. I remember it was the summer of 2018, and I got an electricity bill. And I thought, never again. How many of you ever got an electricity bill and thought, never again? You know what I'm talking about? You're like, my kids can sweat it out. I don't care, right? I thought my dad was crazy when he was like, who left the lights on in here? And I became him, right? But then we got solar panels, right? Then we got solar panels on our house. And I remember the first bill that came in had a little negative before the numbers. So where before it was like, $3 something dollars a month to power this house because we were just sucking all the energy off the grid, right? Now there's a negative in front of it, which means our house produces energy. Now our house is like an electricity plant for the world around us. See, for years, our house has just been sucking energy, right? Got to charge the iPads, got to put the TV on, got to make sure the refrigerator's running, got to make sure the light's on, got to make sure that AC's running like 24/7 in the house. And we were just sucking all the energy in, right? And now we get to live in a power plant where we actually put energy back onto the grid. I like to think of it as like a generous gift to my neighbors, like, hey, here, have some energy that I don't need anymore. I got plenty. But here is the beautiful thing, is that the moment that you choose to forgive and to release all the things that have happened to you and all the choices that other people made of betrayal and letting you down and doing screwy things that they shouldn't have done and betraying your trust and not living in the promise that they were designed to live in with you, the moment that you release that, it releases you to live a life where you look out and you go, everything's a gift. Look at how much I have in my life that is so beautiful. And as you engage in that spiritual practice of gratitude, wholeness is the natural byproduct. You start becoming whole. You're like, I'm complete. There's nothing missing. I don't need to make up for anything. There's not like something that's going to be taken from me. I'm not living in the question, am I enough? And so from that place of wholeness, I get to now become the source that God uses to pour out into others. My life now becomes a power plant for love and for freedom and for hope and for joy. My life generates that for the world around me. And so where once my life just consumed everything around me in a hopeless pursuit of trying to make up what has been done, my life now becomes a gift to the world around me. And so you actually get to choose if your life is just a constant vacuum trying to make up for something that happened that will never be fulfilled, or if your life generates hope and freedom for the world around us. See, He forgives us our debts so that we can forgive our debtors. And in that, we are released to see the world through gratitude. Everything becomes a gift, which makes us whole. And from that space, we no longer look out at the world trying to figure out how much we can get. We enter into a very different conversation of how much can I give? Because as you give, it will be given back to you, pressed down, shaken together, running over abundance. And my life becomes a source of generosity, of hope and love and joy to the world around me. The world has enough people draining this world of all kinds of things. What it desperately needs is people who see themselves as power plants in the world to give back, not just of their money, that's the easy part actually, but of our hearts and our minds and our souls. So as we leave here, the ushers are going to pass out some cards right now. So they're going to pass out some cards. And as they do that, I'm going to give you an assignment, and then we're going to go from here. These are thank you cards. So I want you to think of someone in your life that you have been stingy with your gratitude for. And look, maybe in your heart, you're like, oh yeah, I'm grateful for them, but you haven't said it in a while. Maybe you haven't demonstrated it in a while. You guys can come pass those out right now. And maybe you have found yourself like going, I don't know. And if you want to take a little spicy, pick someone in your life that you struggle having gratitude for. You know what I'm talking about? Your boss, your kids, the person sitting next to you. I don't know, right? Like, just pick one. And here's your assignment this week. We're going to give you a card and a pen. So we're going to give you a card and a pen. You have no excuses, all right? We're going to give you a card and a pen. And here's the thing. I'm going to ask that you can go to lunch, all right? You can go to lunch. We'll let you go to lunch, all right? But sometime between now and lunch and this afternoon, I'm going to ask you to write a letter of gratitude. I'm going to ask you to write a letter of gratitude to that person. I'm going to ask you to extend your heart, extend your mind, extend your thanks. And I'm going to ask you to be specific, not just thank you for all you do. Write it out. Put it on there. And I want you to hand it to them. It might be the most awkward thing on Monday when you get to the office. You might have to walk over to your spouse and say, you're the person, sorry, right, whatever. You might have to hand it to your kid and say, hey, I have not expressed gratitude. Well, I don't know who it is, but you're going to awkwardly, if it may be so, let them know. And here's the thing. As you do this this week, I'm going to ask that you imagine yourself as the power plant. You are now generating hope. You are now generating love. You are now generating freedom, relationship, appreciation. Your life is no longer about consuming what you need. Your life is about giving back to the world around you. So as we leave here today, think about that person and allow it to be the first of many expressions this week of becoming the source to others, of forgiving, of living in gratitude, becoming whole, and naturally stepping into a life of generosity. Let's pray together. Jesus, I thank you that you have forgiven us. And we can walk around confident in that. We can walk around in a sense of power and of hope and of love and of a sound mind because of that, God. May we step into that inheritance this week. And as we recognize we have been forgiven, would you give us the courage to forgive others, to release, and that in that we might become people of gratitude. But may it not stop there. May you make us whole in the process, and out of our wholeness might we become people of generosity. Generous with our hearts, generous with our minds, generous with our spirits, God. We thank you for that. And if this morning you're here and you've not yet connected to Jesus, look, none of this is available without the cross. It just isn't. This is just an exercise in being a good person. I'm not interested in that. I want this to be an intrinsic thing that changes from the inside out. And this morning, if you're here and you've not yet connected to Jesus, and you're ready to be forgiven, to be released, to be set free, he has no expectations on you other than would you make him the one who reigns over your life, who you choose to inform how you make decisions and how you live, and in that he will give you everything. If that's you this morning and you have not yet connected to Jesus and you want to connect to him for the first time, would you just raise your hand and say, I want to connect to Jesus today? Awesome. If you're online, you can just type Jesus in the chat, and I want you just to pray this very simple prayer. Jesus, I give you my life. That's it. Just give him your life. Even that is an act of generosity as he has generously given to you. So Jesus, we thank you for the cross, that all of this is made possible by. In Jesus' name, amen and amen.